Step into the covert world of espionage, where every glance may be a lie and every touch could be the beginning of betrayal. These gripping stories expose the ruthless chessboard of intelligence operations, where honeypot seductions, silent assassinations, and covert missions unfold in the shadows. In a realm where governments weaponize secrets and human weakness is the ultimate vulnerability, operatives are seduced, manipulated, and turned into pawns for the enemy. Each tale explores the personal cost of deception, the fragility of loyalty, and the blurred lines between love, power, and survival. Welcome to the world where trust is a liability and betrayal is just another move in the game. Thank you for listening to Seduce and Extract. Alex had spent years mastering the art of deception, learning how to disappear into a role so completely that even he sometimes forgot who he really was. In Bern, Switzerland, under the guise of a British embassy attaché, he had been watching Anastasia for weeks. She was elegant, intelligent, and ruthlessly efficient, a rising KGB officer with ties to Russia's next-generation tank project, known only as Projekt Yekaterina. Her beauty disarmed many, but Alex saw through her ice-cold exterior to something deeper. Ambition, loneliness, and a growing frustration with Moscow's iron grip. That was his entry point. He staged their first meeting at a diplomatic gala hosted by the Swiss Federal Department of Foreign Affairs. A spilled drink, a disarming apology, and a flawlessly rehearsed accent were all it took to draw her in. Just enough. Over the following weeks, their connection deepened, cultivated with care. Shared secrets over candlelit dinners, soft jazz drifting through dimly lit bars, late-night walks along the Aar River. Alex offered just enough vulnerability to make it feel real, and to her, it began to feel real too. She let her guard down slowly, testing him at first. But eventually, she began to open up about the suffocating control of Moscow and the secrets she was never supposed to share. Each confession became a thread in the web Alex was weaving, methodical, deliberate, and effective. By the time they spent a weekend together at a private chalet outside Bern, Anastasia had already given up fragments of classified intelligence, technical specs, deployment rumors, names. They came out in wine-soaked conversations, or were whispered in the haze of passion. Alex recorded it all, encrypting the data and transmitting it back to MI6. The mission was working. But as her defenses fell, so did a part of him. Anastasia was no longer just a mark. She was human, complex, wounded in ways he hadn't expected. It started with fleeting silences that lingered too long, the brush of hands neither withdrew from, the softness in her voice when she recalled childhood summers on the Black Sea. He told himself it was still part of the mission, that every gesture, every smile, every glass of wine was a tactic. But something had shifted. She laughed when no one was watching. She bit her lip when deep in thought, all because she was thinking of him. Alex. And when she spoke to Alex of the surveillance that stalked her like a shadow, her voice trembled. The fear was real. He found himself replaying the sound of her laughter, the way she curled her fingers around a wine glass, the warmth in her eyes when she trusted him. She wasn't a target to be used. She was a woman burdened by secrets and starved of freedom, and Alex had crossed a line. A line agents are trained to recognize, but never breach. Duty blurred into guilt, guilt into longing, and longing into something dangerously close to love. He continued to file reports, still checked in with his handlers, but with every truth he withheld, every small act of mercy, he was choosing her, bit by bit. What began as deception had become something far more perilous. Not just the betrayal of a mission, but of himself. The handlers in London didn't care about guilt. They wanted blueprints, vulnerabilities, production timelines, anything that could give NATO an edge. Stay the course, they told him. She's cracking. But Alex wasn't sure who was cracking anymore. Anastasia had begun talking about defecting, asking vague questions about asylum, the West, a life without shadows. Whether it was a test, a trap, or a cry for freedom, he couldn't tell. The mission was entering its most volatile phase, and any misstep could blow his cover, and hers. In the world of espionage, love was leverage, and Alex knew better than to believe in it. But her eyes told a different story. one that was becoming harder to ignore. One night, Anastasia handed him a flash drive without question or explanation. "I want to be free of them," she whispered, her voice trembling. Alex said nothing, only nodding, tucking it into the lining of his coat before holding her. Later that night, while she slept beside him, he opened the files. Schematics, design notes, field test evaluations. All of it. Projekt Yekaterina laid bare. He forwarded the contents to MI6 through a secure line buried beneath the Swiss telecommunications grid, then deleted every trace of his transmission. It was the culmination of months of careful work, his mission nearly complete. But nothing in the world of seduction and secrets ever ends clean. The next morning, Anastasia was gone. On the dresser was a letter. Alex picked it up and began to read. "Alex, if you're reading this, then you already know I'm gone. Please don't waste time trying to find me. By the time you woke, I was hours away, fading back into the fog where we both came from. I didn't want it to end like this. I wanted to tell you everything face to face. But there are no clean exits in our world, only quieter betrayals. I knew who you were long before you thought I did. The carefully placed compliments, the manufactured vulnerability, the way you always listened but rarely spoke about yourself. It was a performance I've seen before. A beautiful one, but still a performance. And yet, somehow, you were different. Maybe that was the danger. Somewhere between the wine and the walks, the lies started to sound like truths. The mission blurred, and I let it. Not because I was careless, but because I cared. More than I ever should have. You made me forget the rules, Alex. You made me want to forget them. But forgetting has consequences. And in our line of work, those consequences are written in blood. There are people watching me, always have been. Moscow doesn't forgive weakness. And falling for you was the greatest weakness I could have shown. I couldn't let them use that. I couldn't let them use you. So I had to disappear before they made the choice for me. This letter is all I can leave you. No answers, no promises. Just a memory of something almost real. You once told me that trust was the most dangerous currency in our business. You were right, but I spent it on you anyway. Don't come looking for me. Live, forget, survive. Yours, Anastasia. Even though Anastasia said not to try and contact her, Alex did. Her phone disconnected, her contacts dead. Whether she vanished on her own or Moscow pulled her out, he never knew. Alex finished his assignment and exfiltrated through the French border 2 nights later. The intelligence was a strategic windfall, praised in quiet rooms in London and Washington. But for Alex, the mission didn't feel like a victory. In the silence of debriefing rooms and hotel lobbies, he carried her ghost with him. Anastasia had given him everything, and somewhere along the way, so had he. 2 months later, Alex was summoned to a secure MI6 compound outside of Berlin. He expected a routine debrief, maybe even a quiet commendation. Instead, he was met by Director Halloran, a man whose voice always carried the weight of finality. The briefing room was sterile, grey walls, a steel table, and 1 manila folder. No pleasantries. No time for moral hesitation. "She's resurfaced in Warsaw," Halloran said, sliding the file across the table. "The Russians know. They're watching her, but they haven't moved yet, probably hoping to reel her back in. We can't let that happen. You know what she knows. If they bring her home, we lose control of the narrative." Halloran leaned forward, tapping the folder. "You opened her up, Alex. Now you have to close it, clean." Alex stared at the photo paperclipped to the file. Anastasia, in a grey coat, walking alone outside a cafe in Praga, her face framed by falling snow. She looked thinner, tired. There was no hint of the confident KGB officer who once teased secrets into his hand like silk. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, "There's no other way." "There's always another way," Halloran replied coldly, "but we don't have time for it." Alex stared at him, jaw tight, fists clenched at his sides. The words echoed like a verdict, but he wasn't ready to accept it. Not yet. He looked out the frost-ringed window of the flat they were using in Zurich, watching the snowfall soften the streetlights below. Anastasia's scent still lingered faintly on his coat, her voice whispering in the back of his mind. He had seen the fear in her eyes. She was ready to run, needed to run. All she lacked was a way out. "There is another way," Alex said quietly, defiant. "We get her out, We put her on a plane to Washington or Langley. Let her speak for herself. She has intel, real intel, and she's willing to trade it for safety. Halloran turned slowly, arms folded. You think the agency will risk a diplomatic storm over a KGB officer with pretty eyes and a sob story? I know what she's worth, Alex shot back, and I know what we'd lose if we don't try. He didn't say the rest, that it wasn't just about her intelligence value or even the operation. It was about her, about the nights they spent tangled in shadows, about the moment her voice cracked when she said she couldn't breathe under Moscow's weight, about the way she looked at him, really looked at him, like he was more than just another ghost in the fog. She'll come with me, Alex continued. All it would take is one call, one meeting. She's already halfway out the door. She just needs someone to hold it open. He knew the risks, knew it could burn whatever cover he had left and fracture the mission beyond repair. But for the first time in his career, Alex wasn't thinking like an operative. He was thinking like a man who had something to lose. If she doesn't come in with me, Alex said, his voice low and unshaking, then I'll finish it. Halloran's eyes narrowed. Finish it? This isn't some goddamn movie. You go off script now and you'll burn every bridge left standing. Alex stepped closer, the space between them charged with tension. You think I don't know that? You think I haven't weighed every consequence? He paused, his jaw tightening. I recruited her. I built the connection. I made her believe there was a way out. If she won't take it, if she can't trust me to get her out safely, then I'll end it myself. I won't let her fall into their hands and be paraded out in chains or worse. Halloran stared at him for a long moment, reading the truth in his eyes. This isn't just about her intel anymore, is it? Alex didn't answer. He didn't need to. Halloran exhaled sharply, turning away for a moment before glancing back. You've got 48 hours. One chance. You bring her in, clean and quiet, or you execute her. But if it fails, you're on your own. Alex nodded once. Understood. He turned toward the door, heart pounding, already forming the plan in his mind. He didn't know what Anastasia would choose. Freedom, love, fear. But he had to give her the chance, because if she wouldn't come in with him, there would be no second attempt. Only silence, and the end. The next evening, Alex arrived in Warsaw under a false passport and a different name. His silenced pistol sat like dead weight beneath his coat. He knew her routines. She always sat by the window. She always ordered tea. And she always looked over her shoulder. This time when she did, she saw him and smiled. Not startled, not afraid, as if part of her had always known he'd come. As Alex walked into the coffee shop, Anastasia watched Alex approach the waitress at the front desk and ask for the bill of the woman sitting at the table by the window. Alex paid the bill and wrote on the front of the receipt, Hotel Bristol, room 562, midnight. Alex walked out without even looking at Anastasia. She was confused, disappointed. Anastasia sat motionless for a moment, the receipt trembling slightly between her fingers. Hotel Bristol, room 562, midnight. No greeting, no explanation, just a location and a time, just like old operations, veiled in silence and expectation. She folded the receipt slowly and tucked it into her coat pocket, her eyes scanning the street outside. The snow was falling again, soft and silent, blanketing Warsaw in cold stillness. Part of her wanted to stay rooted to the table, to pretend she hadn't seen him, pretend she hadn't felt her chest tighten the moment he walked through the door. But part of her knew, just as she had always known, that this night was inevitable. By 11:45 p.m., she stood outside the grand façade of the Hotel Bristol. Its old-world elegance loomed tall against the frozen city, a palace for ghosts like them. Inside, the corridors were silent, thick-carpeted, dimly lit. Her heels made only the faintest sound as she moved through the hallway. When she reached room 562, she hesitated. Her reflection in the polished brass number plate stared back, older, wearier, still beautiful, but no longer naive. She raised her hand and knocked twice, firm, certain. A moment passed, then the latch clicked. The door opened just enough for her to slip inside. Alex walked over to the far window, the city lights casting long shadows across the room. He hadn't moved since opening the door. He just watched her, his expression unreadable, his eyes shadowed, but not cold. She stepped in without a word. the door closing behind her with a soft finality. The quiet between them was thick with memory and unfinished sentences. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said finally. "I wasn't sure you meant it," she replied, removing her gloves slowly. "I did." She looked at him for a long time. "So, is this a beginning?" Alex shook his head slightly. "No, it's a choice." She took a breath and walked closer. "Then ask me." He looked into her eyes, and the weight of everything unspoken between them settled into the space they now shared. "Come with me," Alex said. "Now, tonight. We disappear. I have the documents, the exit route, everything." Anastasia didn't move. Not yet. "And if I say no, then I finish it." Alex pulled out his Walther PPK with a silencer. She studied him. "You'd kill me?" His jaw flexed. "No, but I'd kill everything we built. Burn the network, cut ties, make sure they never find you, or me." A long silence stretched. Then softly she whispered, "Give me the passport." Alex handed her the forged passport and a folded envelope with transit documents and cash. She took them without a word, her fingers brushing his. For a second, there was stillness. No agents, no borders, no betrayal. Just two people trying to outrun a world built on lies. Anastasia walked over to Alex, her footsteps soft against the carpeted floor, but heavy with everything unspoken between them. She paused in front of him, searching his face. Not for answers, but for recognition, for something familiar. Then, without a word, she raised her hand and placed it gently on the back of his head, her fingers threading into his hair with the care of someone who had memorized every line of him long ago. She guided him downward, slowly, deliberately, and their lips met in a kiss that was neither hurried nor uncertain. It carried the weight of distance, of danger, of things nearly lost. When they pulled apart, she rested her forehead briefly against his, her voice soft and thick with emotion. "I've missed you, Alex," she said, not as a confession, but as a truth she had carried in silence through every surveillance shadow, every sleepless night, every whispered lie. But reality snapped back with the quiet buzz of his encrypted phone on the nightstand. He read the screen and tensed. "What is it?" Anastasia asked. "They're here." He moved to the blackout curtain, parted it slightly. Across the street, a dark sedan sat parked under a dead street lamp. No movement, no running engine, just waiting. "They followed me?" she asked, eyes narrowing. "Yes," Alex said, moving with sudden urgency. He cracked open the closet, revealing a compact duffel with a cache of weapons, burner phones, and a grey peacoat identical to his. "Change. Now." She didn't hesitate. While she slipped out of her coat and into the peacoat, Alex reached into the lining of his own and drew out a second weapon, a compact Makarov, Soviet issue. "You always did like irony," she said dryly, "in case we need to speak their language." By 12:15 a.m., they were out the door, moving like seasoned ghosts through the upper floors. The elevator was a death trap. They took the stairs instead. Each floor they passed, Alex checked the corners. Quiet, clean. Until the second floor. Voices, Russian, low but assertive. He grabbed her wrist and pulled her back into the shadows of the stairwell alcove, holding a finger to his lips. Two men in long black coats emerged from the elevator, KGB. Their posture casual, but their eyes scanned too deliberately. One of them held a hand to an earpiece. "They're communicating with someone." "Down the service stairs," Alex whispered, barely audible. They doubled back, slipping through a staff-only door and descending the back stairwell to the kitchen level. The clatter of cutlery and the scent of bleach masked their approach. A lone hotel staffer glanced at them, but looked away just as fast. He knew better. They exited through a side loading dock into the alley. The cold hit them instantly, biting through their coats. But freedom was close. "Car is 3 blocks east," Alex muttered. "Underground lot." They moved quickly, weaving through narrow alleys between shuttered shops and crumbling stone buildings. The streets were nearly empty at this hour, but not empty enough. Halfway to the garage, a car door slammed. Headlights flared on behind them. "Run!" Alex snapped, grabbing her hand. Gunshots cracked through the night, echoing off the stone. A round shattered a street lamp above, showering them in sparks and glass. Anastasia ducked instinctively, but kept moving. Her breath came fast, visible in the cold. They cut through a narrow pedestrian tunnel. Behind them, the car skidded to a stop, and 2 more figures emerged, shouting in Russian. Alex turned and fired twice, controlled, Precise. One figure dropped, the other ducked for cover. They emerged on the far side of the block. The entrance to the garage was ahead, a low concrete wall and a rising gate. Alex pulled a remote from his pocket. Click. The gate rattled open. Inside, a battered grey Audi sat waiting, its engine cold but ready. He threw open the driver's door and shoved the duffel into the back. "Get in!" Anastasia didn't hesitate. As the gate began to close behind them, a final gunshot rang out, chipping concrete inches from the passenger door. Alex threw the car into gear. Rubber screamed. They vanished into the night. Warsaw, 14 a.m. A cold wind swept through the alley behind the Hotel Bristol, carrying with it the bitter scent of gunpowder and diesel fumes. Blood stained the snow near the pedestrian tunnel, one agent down, another wounded, and being dragged into the black sedan. Inside the vehicle, Major Sergei Antonov slammed his fist against the dash. His face, pale and sharp like a cut stone, was twisted in fury. "How the hell did they get past us?" he growled in Russian. The driver didn't answer. No one did. Antonov turned in his seat and glared at the surviving operative, who held a bloodied cloth to his side. That woman was under surveillance for 18 months. 18 months. And now she's in the wind with a British operative who should have been on a watch list months ago. The wounded man coughed, struggling to stay upright. He was using a false identity. The embassy flagged nothing. Antonov waved him off like swatting a fly. "Get every checkpoint alert. Border, air, rail. They're not trying to disappear into the mountains. They're going to ground. That means the Americans. Get me eyes on the US Embassy within the hour." He leaned forward, pulling out a satellite phone. "And call Moscow. Tell them the asset has flipped. Priority black. If she makes it inside that embassy, we lose everything." En route to the US Embassy, 1:28 a.m. The Audi turned onto Aleje Ujazdowski, the long, tree-lined avenue cutting through the heart of Warsaw. The walls of the US Embassy came into view, its outer security lights glowing faintly behind snow-covered hedges and tall iron fencing. Inside the car, Alex kept one hand on the wheel, the other resting on the pistol in his coat. He hadn't spoken much since they left the garage, but the silence between them wasn't distance, it was calculation. Listening, watching, preparing for the worst. Anastasia sat quietly, passport clutched in her hands, her knuckles white against the leather binding. "We don't have a lot of time," she said finally, her voice soft. "We don't need a lot. Just enough to get you past the gate." "And you?" Alex glanced at her. "I'll get you in. That's all that matters." A faint tremble crossed her features. She reached out, placing a hand on his leg. "Don't do that," she said. "Don't talk like it ends tonight." He didn't respond. Not yet. Hotel Bristol, 1:34 a.m. Antonov stood in the now empty suite, the scent of perfume still faint in the air. He walked to the table by the window, where Anastasia had been just hours earlier. He picked up the receipt left behind, the one Alex had written on. Room 562, midnight. Antonov turned to his team. "He's playing by the old rules. Field tradecraft, meet and run. Which means they'll go for a soft target with guaranteed immunity. They are going to the US Embassy." His jaw tightened. "We're not going to catch them at the border. We catch them on the street, before they cross that line." Back in the Audi, 1:42 a.m., Alex pulled into the side street behind the embassy. A small security gate stood at the staff entrance, unguarded at this hour, but monitored. He stepped out, signaling Anastasia to wait. He approached the intercom, pressed the call button twice, and leaned in. "This is Graham, MI6, codeword Lighthouse. I have a defector. Request immediate protective entry." There was a pause, then static, then a voice. "Copy that, stand by." Alex turned back to the car, nodding at Anastasia. From the shadows down the street, a pair of headlights flared on. Too soon. 1:45 a.m. US Embassy, Warsaw. Rear access gate. The heavy steel gate groaned open just a few feet, enough for someone to slip through in a hurry, but not enough to invite attention. 2 US Marine security guards stood just inside the perimeter, rifles slung across their chests, eyes scanning the shadows with disciplined calm. Alex moved first, one hand on Anastasia's arm, guiding her out of the Audi. "She's the package," he called out, keeping his hands visible. "I'm with British intelligence. She's requesting immediate political asylum." The senior marine sergeant, with hard eyes and a square jaw, stepped forward. "She armed?" No, Alex said, just scared. Behind them, the whine of tires echoed against the snow-covered walls. The black Lada sedan skidded to a stop at the end of the alley. 4 men in dark coats spilled out, weapons drawn, moving quickly. Anastasia froze. Alex stepped in front of her, his voice sharp now. Let her through. The sergeant raised his rifle slightly, eyes shifting between the two of them and the rapidly approaching shadows. Who the hell are they? KGB, Alex snapped. If she's not inside that gate in the next 10 seconds, she's either dead or disappeared forever. Make the call. The Marines tensed. One of them reached to his shoulder radio, murmuring to someone inside. The gate buzzed. Step inside, ma'am, the sergeant ordered. Anastasia moved, but Alex didn't follow. She turned, panic rising. Alex! But the gate only opened wide enough for one. Alex raised a hand. Go. No, she said, her voice cracking. Not without you. The KGB men shouted in Russian. One of them leveled his pistol and fired. A round ricocheted off the concrete post just behind the Marine guard's shoulder. The second Marine dropped to a crouch, rifle up, finger on the trigger. Inside now, the sergeant barked. Another shot was heard, but without a ricochet. Alex felt the round hit him in the back. Anastasia hesitated for a breathless second, then ducked inside the gate. It slammed shut behind her with a metallic clank. Alex turned, drawing his weapon in one fluid motion, and fired twice. The first shot struck the front tire of the Lada. The second hit a brick wall just inches from the advancing agent. The KGB team took cover behind the car and a nearby dumpster, barking commands into handheld radios. Alex backed toward the gate, standing directly between the Marines and the incoming fire. I'm not trying to breach protocol, he said to the sergeant. But if that gate doesn't open again, I'm not walking out of here. The Marine's radio buzzed in his ear. He listened, then nodded once. You've got clearance, he said. Move. The gate buzzed again. Alex turned, sprinted the last few feet, and slipped through just as another bullet slammed into the outer wall. Inside the compound, Anastasia stood waiting under the pale glow of a sodium light, tears glistening on her cheeks. He walked straight to her. Behind them, the gate sealed once more with a heavy clunk. Outside, the KGB agent stopped short, staring at the embassy walls, powerless. Alex let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Anastasia reached for his hand. She froze. Her fingers came away wet red. Her eyes widened. Where is this blood coming from? Alex blinked, staggered slightly, and forced himself upright. We need to get inside. Now. But she was already looking him over, seeing the dark stains spreading beneath his coat, soaking into his shirt near the ribs. He was losing colour, and fast. Alex, she whispered, her voice breaking. He started to step forward, but his knees buckled. Anastasia caught him, her strength surprising even herself, and held him upright. She turned sharply to the Marine just behind them. He's been shot! The sergeant's eyes darted to Alex's side, then to his face. The Marine's professionalism didn't falter. We've got a corpsman inside. Move. 2 Marines stepped in, guiding Alex through the inner security door as the embassy's emergency protocols kicked in. The clatter of boots echoed down the corridor. One Marine called for the on-duty medic. Another pulled a medkit from a wall compartment and ran ahead. Alex winced as the cold air hit the wound, soaking his coat deeper with every step. Anastasia stayed beside him, one hand clutching his, the other pressing firmly against his side, trying to slow the bleeding. You didn't tell me, she said, voice low and trembling. I didn't know, until we stopped running, he replied through gritted teeth. His legs gave way just as they passed through the reinforced doors into the embassy infirmary. The corpsman caught him under the shoulders and guided him to the table. Pressure's dropping, the medic said, ripping open Alex's shirt. Gunshot, clean entry, no exit. Is he going to be okay? Anastasia asked, her voice sharp now, more command than question. The corpsman didn't look up. He will if we get this bullet out now. She stood frozen at the edge of the room, her blood-stained hands hanging at her sides. Then she stepped closer, leaned down, and whispered into Alex's ear, her voice trembling but fierce. You don't get to leave me again. Alex smiled faintly, eyes fluttering. Wouldn't dare. The corpsman shouted for sedation and clamps. The door slammed shut behind the team. Outside, Anastasia leaned back against the cold wall, hands still shaking. They had made it, but survival, she realized, was only the first fight.